A pot of water, sitting on top of a metal can pulled from a recycling bin. No camp stove underneath it, no propane canister, no fuel of any kind that was purchased, carried, or stored, just a can. The kind that held baked beans last Tuesday. With a few small holes punched in it and a handful of sticks broken from a branch on the ground nearby, burning inside it with a flame so concentrated, so efficient, and so hot that the water in the pot above it reaches a full rolling boil faster than the same pot on a standard camp stove running on purchased fuel. The can cost nothing, the sticks cost nothing. The knowledge of how to combine them into something that burns hotter and more efficiently than most commercially sold outdoor cooking devices cost nothing either, except nobody told you about it. So until right now, it also cost you every camping trip where you ran out of fuel, every emergency where the gas was gone, every moment you assumed that cooking without purchased equipment was something you simply couldn't do. This is a rocket stove. In its most stripped down, zero cost form, a tin can rocket stove, buildable in 15 minutes from materials pulled entirely from recycling. It is one of the most thermally efficient small combustion devices ever studied by engineers, and it produces cooking heat from sticks, twigs, and scrap wood with an efficiency that shames the propane camp stove sitting in most people's garage. The principle behind it is not new technology. It is not a recent discovery. It is the application of combustion physics, specifically the physics of how a constrained high draft airflow transforms biomass into intense, directed flame that was formalized in the 1980s by rocket stove pioneer Dr. Larry Winiarski at a Provecho Research Center in Oregon, published in peer-reviewed engineering journals, and has since been deployed in humanitarian cooking projects across more than 50 countries. The physics existed before Winiarski named it. It existed before recorded history. The only genuinely new element is understanding precisely why it works and how to build it deliberately rather than stumbling on it by accident, which is what separates a fire that smokes and struggles from one that burns so cleanly and so hot that the can beneath your pot glows orange within 2 minutes of lighting. The Aprovecho Research Center, a non-profit engineering organization that has spent decades developing and testing biomass cooking technologies for populations without access to modern energy infrastructure, has published extensive performance data comparing rocket stove designs to conventional open fires, three-stone fires, and commercial camp stoves. A properly built rocket stove uses approximately 75% less fuel than a conventional open fire to cook the same meal. It produces dramatically lower smoke emissions because the high-temperature, high-draft combustion burns more completely, converting wood gases to heat rather than releasing them as smoke. It achieves flame temperatures significantly higher than an open fire of equivalent fuel mass because the geometry of the burn chamber and chimney concentrates airflow and maximizes the combustion zone temperature. The United Nations Environment Programme has recognized biomass rocket stove technology as a critical intervention for reducing indoor air pollution in developing world cooking contexts. The same air pollution that kills 4 million people annually from chronic respiratory disease caused by open fire cooking. Engineers Without Borders has deployed rocket stove designs in community cooking projects across Africa, Asia, and Central America. The World Health Organization has included improved biomass cookstove technology in its framework for addressing the global burden of disease from household air pollution. And you can build the core device from a bean can and a pair of scissors in 15 minutes. You've seen the principle of this your entire outdoor life without connecting it to controlled combustion engineering? Think about a campfire that won't light. Small wood, no draft, wet conditions, the fire smoldering and smoking without producing real heat. Now think about blowing on that fire from below, directing a concentrated stream of air into the base of the fuel pile. The fire responds immediately dramatically. The flame intensifies, the wood lights, the temperature surges. What you did with your breath is exactly what the rocket stove does with its geometry. It creates a sustained, directional airflow into the base of the combustion zone that maintains the high temperature conditions necessary for complete efficient combustion. You've also seen the chimney effect in action whenever you've lit a paper fire in a fireplace and watched the smoke and flame draw upward powerfully through the flue. That draw is the stack effect. Hot air rises faster than cool air, creating a pressure differential that pulls fresh air in from below to replace it. The rocket stove chimney creates exactly this effect in miniature, generating its own draft from the heat of combustion in a self-reinforcing cycle where hotter fire creates stronger draft, which creates more efficient combustion, which creates hotter fire. The can is not a container, it is a combustion management device. And once you understand that, a recycling bin full of cans starts to look like a shelf of cooking equipment. Here is the physics explained simply. Standard open fires and even many camp stoves burn inefficiently because the fuel, the air, and the flame are not precisely managed. Wood partially combusts, releasing gases that leave as smoke rather than burning completely to heat. The rocket stove solves this through three interconnected mechanisms. First, a horizontal fuel feed channel where fuel is pushed in gradually from one side, ensuring only the tip of the fuel is actively burning in the hot zone, rather than a large mass of smoldering wood. Second, a vertical chimney section directly above the combustion zone, where the rising heat column creates a strong, sustained draft that pulls fresh combustion air in through the fuel feed opening from below the burning fuel tip. Third, insulation of the combustion chamber walls, which maintains the high temperatures required for complete gas combustion, rather than allowing heat to escape through the walls before the combustion reaction completes. Together, these three elements produce a combustion zone that is hotter, more oxygen-rich, and more fuel-efficient than any open fire of comparable fuel mass. In the tin can version, the insulation is provided by the relatively small thermal mass of the thin metal and by the concentrated nature of the burn. The flame is so hot and so focused that even without additional insulation, the performance far exceeds an open fire, though adding insulation around the can significantly improves it further. Here is how you build it, starting with the simplest single can version that demonstrates the principle completely for zero cost. You need one large food can, a standard 700 milliliter or larger tin can, the kind that holds baked beans, tomatoes, or soup. You need a smaller can. A standard 400 milliliter size works perfectly, and a can opener, a pair of tin snips or strong scissors, a nail and a hammer, or anything that can punch small holes in thin metal. Start with the large can. Using your can opener, remove both the top and bottom lids completely, leaving a clean open cylinder. This is your chimney section. Take your smaller can and remove only one end, the tops, leaving the bottom intact. Using tin snips or strong scissors, cut a hole in the side of the small can near the open top, sized to fit the diameter of the large can snugly. This hole is where the chimney attaches to the fuel chamber. Slide the large can into this hole so the two cans form an L shape. The small can is the horizontal fuel feed chamber and the lower section of the chimney, and the large can is the vertical chimney that extends upward above the fuel chamber. The joint between the two cans should be as tight as possible to prevent gas from escaping at the junction rather than traveling up the chimney. Using your nail and hammer, punch a series of small holes, 8 to 12 holes approximately 5 millimeters in diameter, around the bottom perimeter of the small can at the closed end. These holes are the primary air intake. They allow combustion air to enter below the fuel and travel under the burning tip toward the hot zone at the junction. Punch additional holes around the bottom of the large can where it sits on the ground to allow secondary air intake. Your rocket stove is structurally complete. To use it, place it on a non-flammable surface, bare earth, stone, concrete. Feed a handful of dry sticks into the horizontal fuel channel with only the tips of the sticks inside the burn zone at the L junction. Light the tips using any ignition source. Hold your pot above the chimney exit using 3 small stones, a simple wire grate, or any stable support that positions the pot approximately 2 to 3 centimeters above the top of the chimney. Close enough to capture the focused heat column without choking the airflow. Push the sticks inward gradually as they burn from the tip. The fire self-manages its draft from the moment combustion begins. Here is what most people get wrong because the consistent mistakes explain why many people try this, get a disappointing smoky fire, and conclude the method doesn't work, when the problem was entirely in the execution. First mistake, using wet or green wood. The rocket stove's efficiency advantage over an open fire depends on fuel that has low moisture content. Dry sticks, dead twigs, dry small diameter wood. Wet wood requires the fire to evaporate its moisture content before combustion can proceed cleanly, reducing flame temperature, increasing smoke output, and defeating the efficiency advantage of the rocket stove geometry. Collect dry fuel and keep it dry. Second mistake, using fuel sticks that are too large in diameter. The horizontal fuel channel of a tin can rocket stove is sized for sticks of approximately 1 to 2 centimeters in diameter, pencil to thumb thickness. Large pieces of firewood cannot be fed into the channel, do not burn efficiently in the small combustion zone, and produce a lower temperature, smokier fire than thin, dry sticks of the same wood species. The rocket stove is a precision device that rewards matching fuel size to the design. Third mistake, placing the pot directly on the chimney exit and blocking the airflow. If the pot covers the entire chimney opening, it chokes the draft and the fire suffocates within minutes, producing smoke and declining temperatures. The pot must sit above the chimney with a gap. The three-stone support system works precisely because it positions the pot with the right clearance to allow exhaust gases to escape while capturing the maximum heat from the rising flame column. 2 to 3 centimeters of clearance is the functional range. Fourth mistake, building the stove on a surface that draws heat away from the combustion chamber. A concrete or stone surface conducts heat away from the base of the stove, cooling the combustion zone and reducing efficiency. Elevating the stove on a few bricks or placing it on dry earth improves performance significantly by reducing conductive heat loss from the bottom. Fifth mistake, not adding any insulation around the small combustion can for extended use. The thin metal of a food can conducts heat away from the combustion zone quickly, limiting the peak